Good morning. It's a very cloudy day. I'm in the north of Belgium and I'm in a specialist bird hide, and I had to get up really early to get here, so up at 4:15, had about an hour and 10-minute drive, and been here for about an hour. Tends to be the case that when you first get in the hide, there's a flurry of activity, you kind of get excited and you start shooting away. But I got myself set up and I have a view out of this window here and a view behind the camera. Probably gives me about 200 degrees view, and there's actually a small pond in front. We've got some rain as well today, which makes things a little bit interesting. Showers coming in. But yeah, I'm hoping the cloud will lift a little bit, because right now I'm shooting at quite high ISOs, and that always makes it challenging when there isn't enough light to really get your shutter speeds up to 2 times the focal length, which is kind of the rule of thumb. And especially with birds really move. I wouldn't say they move quickly, but they have these kind of very staccato micro movements, as I call them, and you need high shutter speeds to be able to really get things pin sharp. So yeah, I'm hoping from experience of doing a couple of hides this year that probably by about 11 AM, maybe midday, you get peak luminosity, and that's probably when I will hit the majority of my really pin sharp shots. But for the moment, I'm just going to switch the camera around, because there's an oyster catcher that's currently wading, and I think that'll be a very cool scene. We have an expression in the UK for the game of cricket that rain stops play. I think in bird photography, it's actually Canadian geese that stop play. 2 pairs have come down to the pond. There's now 4, and they've been very, very noisy for the past 15-20 minutes, and they pretty much evacuated all of the waterhole, the complete pond. There's no other birds that are around right now. So yeah, it's a waiting game. I might try and get creative with a few shots, but these geese are pretty agitated, and it seems like there's a bit of a territorial battle going on between the 2 pairs. So yeah, they're moving quite a lot, and as the light's still not fantastic, my shutter speeds aren't where they should be. But I don't know, I might try and zoom in and get some of the detail on the feathers and so on, and see what I can get. So whilst it's relatively quiet, let me just explain a little bit how I set my GH4 up to shoot wildlife. The first thing, I just get the information on the back of the screen. The first thing you'll notice is that I'm in aperture priority mode. So at the long end of the 100-400mm lens that I use, my aperture is 6.3. That's the lowest I can go, which actually for bird photography is a pretty good starting point. The other thing that I do is I actually use the one area focus point. In the viewfinder, what that allows me to do is actually use this box here to move around to the area that I want. I can expand it and reduce it down. The other thing that I try to do is have my white balance set for actually the weather conditions. Today it's very cloudy, so I obviously have it set here on the cloudy setting. Let me just put that in the center there. And What I'm trying to do is have an ISO that allows me to have at least 2 times focal length in terms of the shutter speed. So what does that mean? Well, if I'm at 400 millimeters, ideally I'd like to be at a shutter speed of 1/800th of a second. If I'm at 100 millimeters focal length, I want a minimum shutter speed of 200 of a second. Unfortunately, the light is very dull today. It's not strong at all, so as you can see, even at 400 millimeters focal length, I'm only at 1/400th of a second. So the other thing I do with wildlife photography is on my GH4 I have the back button focus actually on the AF/AE lock button, so I have it programmed into the back button here, which is right next to the record button. And the reason I use back button focus is because actually when I am trying to focus, I don't want actually the focus to impede or reduce the speed at which I'm hitting the shutter button. When you have subjects moving, I just want to be able to use my thumb and tap on, tap off the focus lock on the back button, and it means that my response time in getting the shot is much quicker. So if you haven't already started using back button focus for wildlife photography, I highly recommend it. 2 things I think you have to have as a default are aperture priority shooting mode and back button focus. It will really transform your shooting. So good news, the geese are finally gone. And I say it's good news, I mean, I didn't really come here to shoot Canadian geese. I had those down at my local lake, but they were here far too long. Pretty much did an awesome job of completely clearing the area. But the oyster catchers are back, and there's a few chaffinches as well, so it's still a bit quiet. I don't think the oyster catcher is going to go anywhere, so I'm going to take advantage of having a hot cup of coffee, and hopefully something else will come in that I can get a couple of shots of. Now I've changed to the 4K photo mode. So with this clip, it will enable me to scroll through the clip and pull out a 8 megapixel still frame, so I can actually choose whichever frame I want from that 4K clip that it's recording. Just coming up to midday, and even though it's still cloudy, the light's really improved. So I've been able to drop my ISO, my shutter speed's where I want it to be. It's at least 2 times the focal length I'm using, so I feel much more comfortable that I'm going to get shots now that are much sharper. But it's always the way, we've now got really good light, well, relatively good light. There are no birds, everything has gone. So It's going to be interesting. I've had this in bird hides before where the peak light, it's always Murphy's Law. It's when the birds tend to go elsewhere. So you just have to sit tight and keep your eyes open on all sides of the hide and hope something comes in. The other thing that I tend to do as well is, even though I may have shot some of the birds and different species in the morning in pretty poor light, even if I get repeat sightings, I always reshoot them. And the reason for that is, until you actually take your cards back home, offload them on your computer, you're never really going to know if you've got the shots. So it's a little bit like an insurance policy. It's always good to recompose, take those images in better light where you have faster shutter speeds, and make sure you really do bank the shots. So I only have half an hour left in the hide, and it's probably a good thing because the sky is covered in grey cloud and there's torrential rain coming down. In fact, looking at the pond here, it looks like the rain's coming up as well as it is down. So unfortunately there isn't really a lot of variation in the bird life right now. I've got the 2 geese. I had some geese come back from earlier on. There were 2 pairs, but the geese, they've weathered the storm. They've stayed out there. So anyway, hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll catch you next time.